They said I died that day. Not in the way one hopes for, peacefully, with closure or legacy. No. They buried me with whispers. She was always too soft. She never amounted to anything anyway. Good riddance. I heard it all. Because I wasn't dead. Not really. Not yet. I was standing just beyond the tall glass doors of the cathedral-like chapel, rain soaking through the black veil that clung to my face, like the mask of a widow mourning her own death. The scent of lilies and deceit wafted in the air. My coffin lay at the front of the altar, mahogany, polished and gaudy, just like everything he ever gave me. And there he was, Elias Cheng, my ex-husband, handsome as ever in his designer suit, chin tilted just high enough to look proud, but not arrogant. He had mastered the art of pretending to grieve. The woman clinging to his arm, dressed in pure ivory and not black, had tears that sparkled like diamonds. Liliana Sue, my cousin, my betrayer, my replacement. I watched them both cry over my death with the same mouths they used to kiss behind my back. With the same hands they once held me with, held each other now. And the audience clapped in sympathy, blind to the performance. Only one person noticed me standing there. A child. She tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed. "Mama, look. That lady looks just like the dead lady in the box." The mother scolded her sharply, dragging her away, too flustered to really see. That was the moment I knew I had become a ghost to this world. A woman written off, cast aside, left to rot while they moved on. But they forgot one thing. Ghosts don't stay dead. 1 year earlier. My story doesn't begin at the funeral. It begins the moment I lost everything. My name, my wealth, my dignity, and perhaps worst of all, my hope. I was Althea Lynn, once the heiress to Lynn Group, one of the most powerful investment empires in the East. Groomed to succeed, trained in elite schools, fluent in 5 languages, and well-versed in the unspoken warfare of boardroom politics. But none of that mattered in the end, not when betrayal came from within. My father, CEO Richard Lynn, had always said, "Never let the wolves into the drawing room. They'll smile while they bleed you dry." Too bad he never took his own advice. He trusted Elias Cheng like a son, gave him power, titles, even blessed our marriage. But Elias didn't marry me for love. He married me for control. And once my father's health began to fail, Elias made his move. Slow, silent, devastating. First, he manipulated board members. Then he forced me to sign over shares under the guise of preserving the family legacy. And like a fool blinded by love, I did. Liliana had always envied me. She was my cousin, yes, but she was also the illegitimate daughter of my uncle and a social climber from birth. She smiled with all her teeth and wore masks so well, even I believed her loyalty. She cried on my wedding day. She hugged me when I miscarried. She comforted me through Elias's emotional distance. And all the while, she was sleeping in my bed the moment I left the room. When the scandal broke, my father's alleged embezzlement, the company's downfall, my public humiliation, it was already too late. The public turned on me. My friends disappeared. My accounts were frozen. My name was mud. Even the house I grew up in was seized. I remember standing in the rain as security dragged me out. My mother's jade ring still warm in my palm. My heels broken. My body trembling. But not from the cold. From the weight of betrayal, from the realization that no one was coming to save me. And Elias? He filed for divorce the next day. Citing irreconcilable differences and emotional instability, Liliana announced their engagement a month later. With my father's company under Elias's name and my trust fund redirected, yes, redirected, I was not just ruined, I was erased. But if you think this story ends in pity, then you don't know me at all. That night, as I lay in a roach-infested motel, staring at the peeling wallpaper and replaying every smile, every kiss, every lie, I felt something inside me shatter. It was not despair, it was a rebirth. I knew what I had to do. I would become someone else, someone they would never see coming. I sold the last of my jewelry for cash, cut my hair, changed my name, moved to a place where no one knew the Lynn name and began studying finance, tech, law. Every night I consumed books like they were blood, because I would need them for the war I was about to start. I worked as a waitress by day, slept 4 hours, cleaned offices at night. No one knew the woman wiping their floors used to own floors in skyscrapers. And with every coin I earned, I built something they could never take again. Not just money, not just power, but me, the real me. And one day, when the dust settled, when I stood above the ashes of everything they built on my corpse, I would watch them crawl back. I would make them beg. They took everything from me, and I thanked them. Because in the fire they lit, I found my steel. The world didn't see the months that followed. They didn't see the woman crouched over a diner sink at 3 a.m., scrubbing grease from chipped plates while her hands bled through her worn gloves. They didn't see the elegant heiress swallowing half a granola bar to make it last the week, or sleeping in a closet-sized room that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. They didn't see Althea Lynn, because she was gone. What remained of me lived under the name Rhea Tan, a name that meant rebirth, borrowed from my grandmother's clan. The surname Tan came from my mother's side, one I had buried beneath my father's legacy for years. Funny how I only appreciated its strength once I had nothing left to lean on. I disappeared into a world of anonymity. No more tailored suits or limousines, just sneakers from a thrift store and a flip phone held together with tape. I worked 4 jobs: waitress, cleaner, night shift delivery driver, and assistant at a pawn shop. My body ached, my fingers blistered, but my mind sharpened into a weapon. By day, I served the arrogant and the entitled, bowing my head as they threw their change like insults. By night, I studied relentlessly. Coursera, edX, pirated PDFs. I devoured every textbook, every article, every course on corporate law, forensic accounting, crypto markets, algorithmic trading, and the language of contracts. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted to dismantle their world with the precision of a surgeon and the fury of a storm. They took Lynn Group, so I'd build something bigger, something untraceable, global, impenetrable. It started with a man named Carlos. He stumbled into the pawn shop one night at 10:47 p.m., clutching a laptop under his arm, eyes wild with fear and desperation. He tried to sell it for $100, claiming it was worth over $2,000. Normally, I'd hand him a ticket and send him on his way, but something about his voice, trembling yet sharp, made me pause. "What's on it?" I asked, my voice cold but calm. "Nothing, just coding stuff, trading bots, that kind of thing." I narrowed my eyes. "Trading bots?" He hesitated. "Yeah, like crypto algo bots. I used to work for a hedge fund, built some side projects. I got laid off. Now I just want a drink." Instead of dismissing him, I offered him a seat and handed him a cup of instant coffee from the back. That night changed everything. His name was Carlos Leon, 29, genius, fired from his fintech startup when he refused to hand over proprietary code, living in a friend's garage and hacking crypto wallets just to eat. He was desperate. And I was hungry. We talked for 4 hours. By the end of it, I bought the laptop for $200, but more than that, I made him an offer. "Build with me. I'll bankroll you. You get a roof over your head, food, safety. I get to learn. And we build something that can break banks." He looked at me, confused. "What are you trying to do? Rebuild an empire?" And just like that, the first brick was laid. Over the next 6 months, I vanished from the physical world and reappeared in the digital one. Carlos taught me to code in Python and Solidity, how to track blockchain flows, and exploit inefficiencies in high-frequency trading. We rented a dusty storage unit and turned it into a data den, filled with secondhand servers and scavenged hardware. At night, we built Spectre, a shadow trading platform run on decentralized smart contracts, with dummy wallets spread across 3 continents. I used the name Athena K, a silent nod to the goddess of wisdom and war. We built an ecosystem so discreet, even the dark web struggled to map its trails. Money began trickling in, then pouring, then flooding. Not illegally, but silently. Through smart yield farms, through early crypto launches and flash arbitrage. I reinvested every cent, built shell companies, moved assets under unrelated trust funds, bought digital real estate, intellectual property, and by the 12th month, I had over $6.3 million in liquid assets. And not a soul knew. Not Elias, not Liliana, not the vultures circling my father's name. I stayed quiet, watching them through the screens. Liliana had become a darling of society, speaking at women in business events using my quotes, parading in dresses I once designed, using my late mother's pearls. Elias was now the CEO of Lin Group, rebranded as Cheng Holdings, with offices in Shanghai, New York, and Dubai. He stood on red carpets, hand in hand with Liliana, smiling as he took credit for saving the company he stole. And yet, beneath the glitz, cracks had begun to show. Lin Group's core RAND department had suffered a mass exodus. Suppliers were quietly leaving. Auditors had begun asking questions. I knew this because I'd planted the seeds myself. Whispers, offers, anonymous leaks, a drip feed of poison that would unravel them thread by thread. But I wasn't ready to strike, not yet. I needed one more thing, a name, reclaiming the name they thought they erased. The problem with coming back from the dead is that you can't do it as a ghost. I needed legitimacy, public presence, business registrations, and bankable identity. And so I reached out to the only person I still trusted, Serafina Wu, my childhood best friend. We hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years, not since my fall. But she hadn't turned her back on me. She simply hadn't known where to find me. I called her from a burner phone. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Hello, Sierra. A long silence. Thea? And then the sound of sobbing. I thought you were dead. I almost was. Where are you? I'll come. No, not yet. I just need one thing. A clean company registration in Singapore. Quiet. Under a new name. She didn't ask questions. Within 2 days, I had a registered offshore firm, Artemis Crown Holdings. It was elegant, powerful, utterly untraceable, and with it I began buying back what was mine. It started with the smallest acquisition, Petrichor Labs, a boutique AI firm that once partnered with Lin Group. Then Martech Sigma, their digital marketing partner. Quiet purchases, hidden behind layers of holding companies, but they had one thing in common: they were the bones beneath Cheng Holdings' operations. And I was buying them out, piece by piece. Every contract Elias had with them now belonged to me. And soon he would realize that the floor beneath him wasn't crumbling by chance, it was collapsing by design. He didn't see the sword until it touched his throat. That's how I planned it. Elias Cheng thought he had won. He walked through the towering glass doors of Cheng Holdings, formerly Lin Group, with the stride of a man who believed the world belonged to him. At 37, he was the image of masculine success, a tailored Armani suit, a vintage Jaeger-LeCoultre on his wrist, and an expression carved from stone. The office he sat in used to be Richard Lin's, his father-in-law, mentor, benefactor, victim. The old portraits had been removed, the mahogany desk replaced with minimalist steel and glass. Even the scent of the room had changed, once cedar and old books, now sandalwood and quiet ruthlessness. Elias had rewritten the legacy of the Lin family, and he reveled in it. He sipped his espresso slowly, staring out the window at the skyline of Shanghai, unaware of the trap being wound tight around him like silk spun by a venomous spider. And somewhere across the city she watched him. Liliana Su was living her dream. The ring on her finger was a 5.7 carat diamond, custom cut, The man beside her was her childhood obsession. First crush, first heartbreak, now husband-to-be. Her social media profile, meticulously curated, showed glimpses of their lifestyle: champagne breakfasts, rooftop galas, philanthropic luncheons. They called her the Phoenix Bride, the woman who rose from scandal to become a queen. But the truth was simpler. She had climbed a mountain made from someone else's bones, Althea's bones. Liliana told herself she earned this life, that Althea had been weak, unworthy, too emotional to lead a legacy. She told herself lies until they sounded like gospel. But something had shifted lately. Elias had been off, more meetings behind closed doors, sudden rages at interns, financial reports that didn't add up. Last week he'd snapped at her during a dinner with the Chancellor of Business Affairs, something he never would have done before. He was unraveling, and she didn't know why. It began with a single email, from accounting@petrichorlabs.ai to finance.shengoldings.com. Subject: termination of service, notice of asset acquisition. Liliana didn't see the email herself, but she heard the shouting that followed it from Elias's office. The sound of a phone slammed on a desk, the tight, coiled fury in his voice as he barked instructions to his assistant: find out who bought Petrichor. Now, he called Petrichor Labs a minor AI supplier, but in truth, they handled over 60% of Cheng Holdings' predictive analytics for consumer market modeling. Without them, the company's expansion plans in Europe would stall. Later that week, Martech Sigma withdrew from their multi-million-dollar branding contract, citing internal reorganization under new ownership. Juno Logistics followed suit the next day. Elias was still too arrogant to connect the dots, but Liliana wasn't. She stood in the corner of their penthouse suite one evening, watching Elias pace like a caged animal. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. "Are we in trouble?" she finally asked, her voice soft. Elias stopped pacing. "No," he said. "A lie." He lit a cigarette. He never used to smoke. "What is it then?" His jaw clenched. "Someone's buying out our suppliers, quietly, cleanly. They're surgical. This isn't business. It's a damn takedown." Liliana's stomach dropped. "Do you know who?" His eyes met hers, and for a brief moment, Liliana saw something in his face that chilled her. Fear. Not of ruin, but of retribution. "No," he said. But in his silence, a name lingered. Althea. Meanwhile, across the world. In Singapore, the offices of Artemis Crown Holdings had become the nerve center of an empire in the making. Althea stood in the heart of it, no longer wearing second-hand jeans or hiding behind thrift store scarves. She was sharp now, knife-edged in tailored blazers and sleek heels, her presence demanding respect. No longer was she invisible, no longer was she broken. Her team had grown, 8 hand-picked individuals with backgrounds in venture capital, cyber law, strategic acquisitions, and digital security. All of them had been misfits once, discarded by the corporate world. She gave them purpose. In return, they gave her loyalty. Carlos ran operations from behind 5 monitors, fingers dancing across code. Serafina handled global partnerships. A young hacker named Nova traced digital trails of Elias's offshore shell companies. Each piece of the puzzle came together under Althea's watchful eye. But revenge wasn't her only goal anymore. She was building something far greater than Lin Group ever was. And Elias? Elias was just the first reckoning. It came like a knife in the dark. Liliana arrived at the Cheng Holdings office one morning to find a letter on her personal desk. No postage, no name, just her. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. Althea, alive, standing beneath a cherry blossom tree, looking straight at the camera. On the back, a note in delicate cursive. "You wear my pearls well, but can you afford them?" Liliana dropped the photo like it burned her. She gasped, trembled. Her lips moved silently, trying to form words that made sense. but there were none. Althea wasn't dead. She was watching, and she was coming. They whispered that I had died. I let them. It made the sound of my heels on marble floors so much louder. The Cheng Holdings Global Innovation Gala was meant to be a celebration. Held at the Grand Marquess Ballroom atop the Jade Meridian Tower, the gala had been in planning for 6 months. A who's who of international investors, dignitaries, industry giants, and media powerhouses were all scheduled to attend. Elias wanted it to be his declaration to the world that Cheng Holdings was not only surviving, but thriving. Every detail had been meticulously arranged. The velvet was imported, the wines aged and rare. The PR team had even arranged for a segment on national television to be recorded that night, featuring Liliana as the future of modern leadership. A fairy tale was supposed to unfold. Instead, it was the beginning of a haunting. The blueprint of the gala's security layout flickered on a digital screen. Althea stood before it, arms crossed, head tilted in concentration. The room was dim, quiet, thick with tension. Carlos leaned in. "We can breach the guest list 3 ways, through the event planner's email, the valet registry, or the kitchen staff onboarding system. I've already built scripts for all 3. Nova, the hacker, spun her chair. Or you could just walk in through the front door." Althea's eyes glinted. "I will..." Serafina blinked. "Are you serious?" Althea smiled, slow and cold. "It's time." Carlos raised a brow. "You sure you're ready?" Her voice dropped to a low murmur. "They took everything from me because they thought I'd never rise. Tonight, I show them that the woman they buried was the foundation of the empire I now stand on." The Grand Marquess Ballroom glimmered with opulence. Soft jazz played from a live quartet under a crystal chandelier the size of a small car. Waiters floated past with silver trays. Guests arrived in black suits and couture gowns, laughing politely, clinking glasses, unaware that they were walking into a stage built for their humiliation. Liliana stood at the top of the grand staircase in a backless crimson dress, her smile flawless but her nerves fraying. The photo, the note, the eyes that haunted her dreams now hovered behind every shadow. She hadn't told Elias. He had too much on his plate already. More supplier exits, more investor calls gone cold, more questions from the board. He was unraveling fast enough. But she knew. Althea was alive, and somehow she knew tonight wouldn't go smoothly. Enter Athena K. Althea didn't wear a mask. She didn't need to. Her new identity, Athena K, CEO of Artemis Crown, had already begun to make quiet waves in tech circles. Her company was backed by 3 major silent investors, 2 of whom sat on global financial boards. Her image had been soft-launched through niche business journals, always accompanied by glowing praise and vague descriptions. Tonight, she arrived not as a ghost, but as an honored guest. She walked through the front entrance at exactly 8:47 p.m. The valet opened the car door. Her heel touched the marble, and every molecule in that room shifted. Althea wore black, a sleek floor-length gown tailored like armor. Her long hair was twisted up into an elegant knot, a diamond-studded hairpin gleaming like a dagger. She didn't rush, she didn't flinch. As she walked through the crowd, eyes turned. Men stared, women whispered. Cameras shifted in her direction instinctively. No one quite knew her name, but something about her made them straighten their spines. Liliana saw her halfway through a toast. She dropped her champagne flute. It shattered on the floor. A few guests turned. Elias glanced toward the noise. "Lily, are you—" Then he saw her too. For a moment his world stopped spinning. The figure across the room, the poise, the eyes, the tilt of the chin. His mind screamed impossible. But his heart, it remembered. Althea's gaze locked onto them. She did not blink. She did not smile. She simply moved forward, step by step, cutting through the crowd like a silent current. Guests turned to make way. Whispers spread like lightning. "Who is that? Is that—" Wait, wasn't she? Liliana stumbled backward. Her skin turned ash pale, her voice trembled. She's supposed to be dead. Althea stopped a few feet away. Good evening, she said, voice soft but sharp enough to draw blood. CEO Cheng, Ms. Su. Elias's face twitched. You, he started, but his voice failed him. Althea tilted her head. I hope you don't mind that I joined the guest list. It seems Artemis Crown is your newest investor partner. The silence around them was suffocating. Elias's jaw clenched. You shouldn't be here. Althea smiled. But I am. She turned to the crowd, offering a polite nod to a man nearby, an influential board member of a major tech conglomerate. Shall we toast? She asked sweetly, lifting a crystal glass handed to her by an alert waiter. And then she delivered her first blow, to the phoenixes who rise from ash, to the ones they tried to erase. To empires built not on theft or lies, but on what they never saw coming. She drank, the room buzzed, reporters scribbled, social media snapped. Liliana nearly fainted, Elias stood frozen, and Althea? She smiled, turned, and walked away. The damage was done, the storm had landed. That night, Artemis Crown Holdings trended globally. Speculation exploded. Who was Athena K? Why was she at the Cheng Gala? And why did the Cheng PR team look so shaken? Within 24 hours, and then 3 major investors withdrew quietly from Cheng Holdings, and Petrichor Labs officially cut ties with all former Cheng contracts. The press began to dig into Elias's rise, and the disappearance of his former wife, Althea Lin. A photo leaked, the one of her beneath the cherry blossom tree. They began to remember her, and just like that, the world started asking questions. A lie only survives until someone dares to tell the truth. Louder, clearer, and with receipts. At 8:05 a.m., a whisper ignited on the business gossip blog CityWire. Who is Athena K, the billionaire CEO who silenced Elias Cheng with one toast at 8:16 a.m.? The post had 32 views. By 9 a.m., it had 9,240. By noon, it was being cited in the Shanghai Financial Post, Bloomberg Asia, and Women in Power Weekly. The headline shifted across platforms. The ghost of Lin Group returns. Elias Cheng's ex-wife is alive. And richer than him? From ruin to revenge, the woman who might own Cheng Holdings' next Athena K is Althea Lin. Confirmed. By the end of the day, Althea's face, once blurred in trauma and scandal, was back on every screen, every feed, every whispered conversation. Althea didn't need to chase attention. It came to her. But when Celine Du, anchor of China Global Business Today and unofficial queen of high-profile exposés, personally reached out for an exclusive interview, Althea agreed. The broadcast was set for the following Friday. Primetime international syndication, simulcast in 3 languages. But before cameras rolled, there was one thing Celine had to know. Why now? She asked during their pre-interview call. Her voice was professional, but laced with curiosity. Althea's tone was calm. Because the truth only matters when the lie has made enough noise. Celine paused. You want to reclaim your name? No, Althea said. I want to make sure it's the last name he ever says before he loses everything. The mood was apocalyptic. Elias slammed the remote onto the boardroom table, the paused TV screen behind him showing a zoomed-in photo of Althea stepping out of the gala, flanked by top investors. She's playing the victim, he growled, rebranding herself as some phoenix while she dismantles our company. He turned to his legal head. File an injunction against her use of Artemis Crown. Will claim copyright violation on the trademark. His lawyer shifted awkwardly. She already registered Artemis Crown 3 months before you trademarked any global expansion initiative. We can't touch her. What about slander? There's been no public accusation yet. Then what the hell are we doing? The room fell silent. Liliana sat at the far end of the table, frozen in place. Her perfectly curated smile was long gone. She felt it, like a ghost behind her, hands around her throat. The life she had stolen was slipping from her fingers, and no matter how tightly she clutched her diamond ring, it didn't stop the fall. It begins with soft music, a montage of Althea Lynn, her wedding day, her speeches as Lynn Group's youngest heir, and a shot of her at a hospital window, face hollow, body fragile. Then it cuts to now. Athena K, powerful, unapologetic, composed. Celine Du leans forward, microphone clipped delicately to her lapel. Your name was erased from Lynn Group's history after the merger. The public was told you were hospitalized indefinitely for mental instability, that you gave your shares away willingly. Althea nods. That was the lie they needed to believe to legitimize Elias Cheng's hostile takeover. You disappeared for 4 years. Where were you? A pause, just long enough to build suspense, recovering, watching, learning what silence can buy. Celine glances at her notes. And now you've returned, not as a victim, but as the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech holding companies in Asia. Althea's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Rebuilding is the best revenge. But it's not enough. Celine tilts her head. What do you want, Althea? The room stills. I want every board member who turned a blind eye to my erasure to resign. I want the Cheng name scrubbed from Lynn Group history. And I want Elias Cheng to face the truth, not behind closed doors, but under the lights. Celine leans forward. Are you accusing him of corporate fraud? Althea locks eyes with the camera. I'm not accusing anyone, she says. I'm presenting evidence next Monday, 9 a.m., to the public, the courts, and the investors. If they still stand beside him after that, then they deserve the fall too. The world reacts. The interview garners 12.7 million live viewers. Within 48 hours, #Athenac trends in 12 countries. A petition demanding an investigation into Lynn Group's transfer of power hits 300,000 signatures. And 3 independent journalists begin dropping leaked emails from Elias's inner circle. Emails showing bribery, falsified medical documentation, and manipulated board votes. More than a dozen shell companies in the Cayman Islands are linked to Elias and funneled into under-the-table campaign contributions. The corporate house of cards begins to sway, and Althea hasn't even opened her war chest yet. Elias finds it in his private home study. On ivory stationery, sealed with wax, he opens it with trembling hands. You took my name, my company, my voice. I'm not here to reclaim them. I've already made better. I'm here to take what's left of you. The higher they place themselves, the louder it is when they hit the floor. And I made sure there was no cushion below. Sunday, the night before everything burns. The Artemis Crown headquarters was silent, save for the hum of glass-paneled elevators and the low click of high heels echoing through the executive wing. Althea stood in her private conference suite, facing the city skyline. She wasn't alone. Nova, Carlos, and Serafina flanked her, each standing before an illuminated screen displaying a puzzle piece of the war plan. A global press conference had been announced for the next morning. Media outlets were scrambling for exclusive rights. The anticipation in the financial world felt like the hush before a nuclear test. Serafina crossed her arms. Tomorrow you end Elias Cheng. Althea didn't flinch. No, tomorrow he ends himself. I'm just holding up the mirror. Nova tapped her tablet. We've time-synced everything. The documents, the video footage, the whistleblower affidavit, the Cayman's account trail, all set to drop at 9:01 a.m., alongside your speech. Carlos nodded. The files are too clean. They can't spin this. Even their PR crisis firm will need divine intervention. A breath passed. Althea turned. Has Liliana requested a meeting? Nova smirked. Twice. She's scared. Althea's voice turned to ice. Let her be. Monday, the reckoning. The ballroom of the Grand Imperial Hotel had never hosted a press event like this. The entire stage was draped in black and silver, Artemis Crown's colors. A single podium stood before a sea of international journalists, cameras blinking, pens ready. Althea walked on stage at precisely 9 a.m., no entourage, no need. She wore a cream suit tailored like armor, hair swept into a low twist, and eyes that glinted with finality. Flashbulbs exploded. She waited for silence. Then she began. I was called mentally unstable, declared unfit to lead, and erased from the company I helped build from the ground up. I was institutionalized without consent. My shares were transferred under duress. My father's legacy, Lynn Group, was hijacked. A gasp moved through the room. She clicked a button on the remote. A screen lit up behind her. Emails, signatures, recordings, hidden camera footage. Her voice never shook. The man behind this is Elias Cheng. With the aid of Liliana Su and a complicit board, he used forged medical reports and backdoor dealings to take over what he could never build himself. She paused. And then, today, I reveal the full scope of their corruption. What followed wasn't a speech. It was a systematic dismantling, and leaked internal emails revealed how board members were bribed with foreign real estate. Then surveillance footage showed Liliana forging Althea's signature while she was sedated. Unknown audio recordings played Elias ordering a falsified diagnosis to lock Althea away quietly and permanently. Annette financial records proved shell companies under Elias's name funneling funds from Lynn Group into his offshore retirement nest egg. And finally, an affidavit from Dr. Chin, the psychiatrist who admitted Althea under false pretenses. His confession ended with one sentence. She was never unstable, but they needed her out of the way. At Cheng Holdings, chaos reigned. The boardroom was in uproar. 2 directors resigned mid-meeting. Stockholders were dialing in by the hundreds, demanding explanations. Legal counsel advised Elias to step down immediately. He refused. I made this company, he roared. Without me. He didn't finish. Because the board chair stood. Without you, it survives. With you, it burns. In her penthouse suite, Liliana stared at the screen, face pale and eyes sunken. She watched as her crimes were projected across the world. There was no more pretending. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone to dial Althea. No answer. She tried again. No answer. On the 3rd attempt, a message appeared, blocked. She walked into the Cheng Holdings building without permission, because she didn't need it anymore. With emergency shareholder voting power transferred to Artemis Crown by key investors, she now owned controlling interest. Security didn't stop her. The boardroom doors swung open. Elias stood alone inside. She stepped forward, each footfall as calm as it was final. I built Lynn Group, he said bitterly. I made it more than your father ever could. No, Althea said softly. You exploited it. You buried me thinking I was weak. And you crowned yourself with stolen gold. He lunged toward her, but she didn't flinch. Because 2 security guards stepped in behind her. Mr. Cheng, she said, you're officially removed from all positions. The arrest warrant will follow shortly. You are now nothing more than a name history will spit on. Elias was dragged out screaming. Althea stood in that room, silent and still, until the sun poured through the blinds and hit her face like a spotlight. Over the next week, Artemis Crown completed its acquisition of Lynn Group. And Liliana was sued by 4 separate parties, including Althea, the state, and the Lynn Trust. And Althea's full memoir was announced with an international book deal and film rights. A movement started to reclaim her throne, a rallying cry for silenced women in business. In the rose garden behind the Artemis Crown Tower, Althea sat on a stone bench. Nova approached, setting down a cup of tea. You did it, she said softly. No, Althea replied. I finished it. Carlos joined them, phone in hand. Public approval rating 89%. Share value doubled. And Elias? He's facing 10 years minimum. Althea stared ahead. Her kingdom wasn't built in a day. It was forged from ash, grief, and vengeance. But now, she was no longer a phoenix, she was the fire itself. Revenge was never the destination. It was the storm I had to pass through, to find myself again on the other side. Spring had arrived early that year. The air smelled of magnolia and sun-warmed stone. A gentle breeze passed through the hanging wisteria on the terrace of the Artemis Foundation for Women's Equity and Power, a 30-story glass tower that now stood as one of the most influential philanthropic bodies in East Asia. At the very top, nestled in a garden above the clouds, sat a woman in white, quietly sipping tea. Althea Lynn, no longer hiding under code names or layered identities. No longer avenging, just living. She wore a simple linen blouse and pale trousers. No designer armor, no cameras. Just sunlight, silence, and the scent of jasmine. She was finally at peace. But peace didn't mean passivity. Her tablet pinged once. A notification: Athena Capital Fund passes $1 billion in global women's entrepreneurship investments. Another ping: Artemis Crown named first most ethical holding firm by Global Business Review. Another: Liliana Su denies parole. Denial upheld. Althea didn't smile. She didn't gloat. Because she no longer needed to. The world had tried to erase him from memory. Elias had turned his legacy into a weapon, but Althea had restored it, not just in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the hearts of those who had once believed in him. She laid a single white orchid on his grave. "I did it, Baba," she whispered. "And I didn't become them to do it." Her hand rested on the cold marble. "I still remember everything you taught me. Honor isn't loud. Power doesn't need cruelty. And sometimes survival is the greatest defiance." She stood. Behind her, the wind moved through the trees like an ancient song. She didn't turn to look. She had more to build. The world knew her name now. Children in classrooms now learned about the Althea Clause, a global corporate law provision that mandated mental health diagnosis protocols in business disputes, born from her battle. Young women wrote essays about Athena K in business schools around the world. She had become more than a cautionary tale. She had become a blueprint. Years after the firestorm faded, one final envelope arrived. No sender. Inside was a card, handwritten, slanted, familiar. "You taught me what real power looks like. You didn't destroy us with fists. You let the truth rot us from the inside. I hated you for it. Now I envy you for it. L." Althea read it only once, then dropped it into the fireplace and watched it turn to ash. She was walking through the Artemis garden with her goddaughter when the little girl tugged on her sleeve. "Auntie Thea?" "Yes, baby. Are you famous because you were sad and then got strong?" Althea crouched down, looked into her eyes. "No," she said gently. "I'm famous because they tried to keep me weak, but I remembered who I was." The little girl blinked. "So, you were always strong?" Althea smiled. "Yes, I just had to burn everything down to remember it." She wasn't just reborn, she rebuilt. And when they came to beg, on their knees, with nothing left, she had already moved on. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it and you would love for more, kindly comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.